Our first finalist is Mr. Mike Scragg. Mike, if you can come to the podium. And tonight's format, you will be asked 4 questions. Starting with the first question is actually an introduction with the following elements. In 5 minutes or less, please provide a brief overview of your career, including prior positions held, why you are interested in this position, and why your skills, experience, and expertise make you the right candidate to become the next city manager of Salina, Kansas.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. As she said, I'm Mike Scragg. I know quite a few of you as a deputy city manager here in Salina, and as far as my career progression, I guess I'll just kind of take it in chronological order. While in college as an undergrad, I wasn't entirely sure what career I was interested in, but got the opportunity I had an interest in politics and current events, and got the opportunity to take a class from a city manager and got exposed to the city manager profession. So I took an internship for almost 2 years in the Kirksville City Manager's office while I went to school at Northeast Missouri State. And then, I guess, bravado and being naive, I'm not sure which, I decided I wanted to branch out and be a city administrator in a small community of Maysville, Missouri, which is about 1,200 people in northwest Missouri up around St. Joe. So I was there for about 2.5 years, and I went back after I left and looked at the tenure there, and in about a 5-year span, they went through 5 city administrators, and I was there for 2.5 of those. So another community that my wife and I had looked at and thought if that opportunity ever came up, we want to jump at it, was Smithville, Missouri, which is a northern suburb of Kansas City, and had a Corps of Engineers lake and a lot going for it. And about 6 months after we kind of reached that conclusion, the position opened up. So went there in 1993 and stayed for 12.5 years as the city administrator there. And then the Salina opportunity came along. In all honesty, I was looking for a change. 12.5 years in a challenging community. I was looking for more resources and an organization that probably had a little bit more to offer. And so Salina opportunity came along, and it was an identified need for development services experience, which is something I had from Smithville, and so have been in Salina for 13 years last week. So I guess that covers my chronology just a little bit. Why I'm interested in the position, other than my oldest daughter who's in college now, Salina is home to my entire family. I've got a college daughter, a high school age daughter, a middle school age son, and an elementary school age daughter. And so Salina is home for us, and you know, it's an opportunity for me to further my career and stay at home and not have to drag my family around, which is one of the downsides of being the city management profession. So with respect to my skill set and what I have to offer, I think starting in a small community, it really, you kind of learn by fire, and I've had a lot of exposure to everything from projects and challenges, but I guess the thing that people might not know about me is I've spent more time working for a governing body as the direct chief administrative officer of an organization than I have as a deputy. And so being answerable to the governing body is not something that I'm unfamiliar with. In fact, I have plenty of experience and enjoy that. In Smithville, I'm a little hesitant to say this and have to get back to Smithville, but I didn't realize for quite some time how dysfunctional that organization was when I got there. It really was kind of years later after I left and shared war stories with other city managers that I started to realize maybe what I faced wasn't normal. Not all city managers are going through those kind of challenges, but I think it really forced me to develop a strong sense of ethic and city manager responsibility. And my takeaway is that I'm a steward of the city's resources, whether that's financial or organizational. I have a role to play. I played the role of deputy city manager to the best of my ability, and in a city manager role, you are trying to serve the governing body, serve the community. So I feel like I have a lot of experience of getting through tough situations just by balancing, assisting the governing body in prioritizing and making decisions and then carrying that out. And so it's not my will, it's not my preferences as much as a process and trying to work with the governing body. And specifically as it relates to Salina, we just have so much going for us right now. We've had developers and others refer to the projects that we have going on as generational projects, and I sincerely believe that. the downtown Star Bond project, the river project, the recent sales tax that was passed, and maybe it's just me, but this year in particular, I've noticed the street quality and the improvements that are being made and the results of that. So I look forward to kind of continuing that momentum. Having been involved in that, I think I can keep that going and build on it. And I just cherish the organization and the opportunity to serve the community. So with that, I guess I think that covers the three questions or the three topics. And one way or the other, I'll continue to serve Salina and look forward to the opportunity to be city manager if it should come to be.
In 3 minutes or less, please explain who has been your greatest professional mentor and how he or she has furthered your growth.
Well, I mentioned kind of the challenges I faced in Smithville, and it was actually the city attorney, Brian Hall, and I don't know that I've ever told him this, but time and time again, he and I would just have to sit down and sort through the political challenges and the ethical challenges, and he's who helped me kind of realize the legal role, the legal authority of individual commissioners and the governing body as a whole, and recognize the role that the city manager plays. And that's kind of how you, in my estimation, that's how you remain professional, that's how you do your job appropriately, that's how you support the governing body, and that's how you stay in a tough situation for 12 and a half years like I did. That you just have to recognize that your role is kind of in the middle of all that. I mentioned to the city commission that city managers manage up to the governing body, down to the organization, and out to the community. And if you can keep that balance and recognize it's not personal but professional, and that there's no wrong opinion. I frequently have staff get frustrated with something that's going on. They feel like a different decision should be made, and I used to tell them that, how many votes did you get in the last election? I didn't get one. And my point, I guess, is with the help of the city attorney and kind of working our way through those issues, it really solidified my approach, my objectivity, I think, and the way that I can lead other staff and try to provide professional staff support. So, and when you're facing that many legal problems, and questions, you definitely need good counsel. So he was definitely that.
In 3 minutes or less, describe your approach to public outreach, community engagement, and seeking community input. What methods have you found to be most effective, with examples?
I would, in all honesty, say that we kind of been doing the routine. Earlier in my career, the internet and some of the social media options weren't available, so it was typically public hearings and meetings and possibly newsletters. I think we have an opportunity that we may not have taken advantage of in terms of more social media. We do have a public engagement coordinator in the city manager's office, and we try to push Facebook messages, but one of the things that came out in the interview with the city commission was, as part of our staff reports, I say recently, I don't know, 6, 7, maybe more years ago, added a component that was our strategic plan goals, and it was intended to kind of force the question of staff as they put the staff report together. How is this decision, how is this recommendation tie back to the strategic plan goals of the city commission? I think there's an opportunity there to make public input another report item on that staff report. And so I don't think it's universal. I don't think the same approach applies in every instance. It could be a public hearing in the neighborhood. It could be a social media poll. It could be just a social media outreach. So I can't say that that's something that I've done in the past. I think that's an opportunity that we have before us that we could approach. The other thing I would say is I do believe that, and staff's heard me say this multiple times, there's value in process. We owe it to the people, whether it's public notice, certified letters, a public hearing, to conduct that process so that we, at the end of the day, can say that opportunity was there. Whether the public took advantage of it or not isn't necessarily on staff. Well, that opportunity was afforded to them. Well, with technology changing, there's better ways to provide those opportunities than expect them to come to City Hall on a night when they've got a lot of other things going on. So going forward, if I were lucky enough to get the position, I think the city commission could provide some direction on what level of public input they would like to see and what approach we'd like to take. And And there's technology out there in terms of social media software that allows people to, more than just Facebook Live, but to provide feedback and provide input. It's tough to balance all that information in the middle of a meeting, but I think the social media aspects give you an opportunity to do that.
In 3 minutes or less, please identify your greatest management strength and provide examples of how you have effectively used it in your current position.
Well, in my master's program, one of the things, a concept that I picked up that I would like to think that I was doing before I realized it was a formal concept is adaptive leadership. And I like to say that you need to meet people where they're at, and so different situations call for different types of leadership. You can, in certain instances you need to be decisive, and whether it's because of time, urgency, or just the matter at hand, you need to make the decision and take responsibility for that. Other times you need to be collaborative, whether it's with staff, whether it's with the governing body, whether it's with the community at large. And other times, when you have the opportunity, you need to try to, what I like to say is lead from behind and give staff an opportunity to develop and provide them some coaching or some support without jumping out ahead of them. I found that if you take on too much responsibility, human nature is, well, that's not my project anymore, I guess you can have it, and that's not developing your staff or your organization. So I guess my response to that would be, I like to consider myself an adaptive leader. I like to use applicable skills based on the situation. So if you're dealing with contracts, that's one whole skill set. If you're dealing with conflict resolution, that's a different skill set. If you're negotiating an agreement or a project, that's a whole different skill set. And obviously, I'd like to say that I have all those skills, and I think I have the experience and I can be successful at that, but I try to adapt, and I also try to identify the resources that are available. I like to gather information. I like to rely on staff and others' expertise and not just lead the conversation and stifle conversation, but I like to foster conversation, gather information, and then kind of assimilate that, offer up a solution, and then throw that out for additional discussion. Sometimes that takes longer than we have, but that's my general style, and I think it's pretty successful.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Our second finalist, Mr. Jeff Dingman, would you please come to the podium?
So this is my introduction time, right?
Well, I have context for you, so the introduction will be one of the questions in the question format. So in 5 minutes or less, if you would please provide a brief overview of your career, including prior positions held, why you were interested in this position, and why your skills, experience, and expertise make you the right candidate to become the next city manager of Salina, Kansas.
Excellent. All right. So, well, currently I am the Deputy City Administrator in Fort Smith, Arkansas. I've been there since June of 2011. Prior to that, I was 8 years as the City Administrator in Baldwin City, Kansas. Town of about 4,500 people or so. Prior to that, I was also in Fort Smith, but I worked at the county at that point for Sebastian County, Arkansas. Worked there for 4 years as the county administrator, working for the elected county judge at that point. So before that, I was 2 years in the city manager's office of University Park, Texas, and that was directly out of graduate school. So being in local government is all that I've done. So about 3 years ago, the city administrator I was working for in Fort Smith retired, and there was a vacancy, and so I was in the position that Mr. Sprague is in as the deputy that was also in line for that position. So I know I appreciate that position that he's in at the moment. So the city's board of directors, the city commission, hired a different candidate. So I started looking for positions that I thought would fit my skill set, particularly cities of a particular size. They had a complex city government, had a lot of things going on, had great potential, and looked like an exciting place to bring my family. So, you know, Salina certainly is one of those cities, and so in that sense, Salina is attracted to me in the profession of city management, just because of there's a lot of things going on, and as far as you all know what those things are better than I do, but from an outsider's perspective, there certainly seems to be a good opportunity for a professional local government manager in this town. So.
In 3 minutes or less, please explain who has been your greatest professional mentor and how he or she has furthered your growth.
Well, I mentioned that I worked in the city manager's office in University Park, Texas. The city manager there, his name is a fellow named Bob Livingston, and he retired from the profession about 3 years ago as city manager, still in University Park. But during his tenure there, I went to University of Kansas for grad school through their MPA program, and the second year of that program is an internship, a full-time internship with one of their graduates. It could be any place in the country. Mine happened to be with Bob in University Park. Turned from a 1-year internship into a 2-year stint while I was there. But Bob and his wife, Linda, he had been a city manager in Dodge City for a while. I think he grew up in Coffeyville. He was in California for a little while, but the good bulk of his career was in University Park in the Dallas area, and I still make contact with him. I've talked with him about this job, and so you know, he's somebody that I see, you know, maybe once or twice a year if I'm lucky. But I talk to him as much as I can and keep in touch with him, and he is always he's always been a good mentor for me. He and his wife both. So.
In 3 minutes or less, describe your approach to public outreach, community engagement, and seeking community input. What methods have you found to be most effective, with examples?
All methods are tough. I mean, when you're going through the process of soliciting public input for a particular project or policy or something like that, you never know what you're going to get, but you always have to ask, and you always have to seek that input in different ways that mean something to the people that you're asking of. And so whether that's, you know, traditional methods of outreach, you know, holding a public hearing, a public meeting, and doing demonstrations and things like this, or if it's attending events or trying to promote policy or a project or something like that, going where people already are. We've done all sorts of those things, including doing using technology in terms of providing websites and doing surveys and all the traditional types of things that you do. You try to blend the old stuff in with the new technology and get as much feedback as you can, and to various levels of success. But the more of that you try to do, the better your results are.
In 3 minutes or less, please identify your greatest management strength and provide examples of how you have effectively used it in your current position.
I think collaboration is probably the thing that I'm most known for in terms of bringing people together with different ideas and finding middle ground. You know, a specific project that I know I've mentioned with some folks before was a project that we worked to build a water park, much like the one that you all have here in town. That was a collaboration between the city government that I work for now and the county government that I used to work for many years ago. But it was it was a struggle, not so much from the staff perspective, but from the elected officials' perspective and the community's perspective, to get everybody on board with how the project would work, how it would be funded, how it would be designed, what amenities would it have, and all of those things that, I think even the county judge who I worked for, is still county judge there, he's been in the local government for 40 years, and even he will say that's the hardest project that he's ever worked on in his public career. And thank goodness it was for an amenity like that people wanted, and not something that was a boring project. But it surely was a test of all of our collaboration skills on both sides to get that project done.
Thank you very much. This concludes our question session. And from here, we will just continue the meet and greet. So please feel free to interact. If you have direct questions of either candidate, they will be available.